Hello, Stoned Apes and others who are curious about the healing powers of psychedelic medicines. Welcome to the Stoned Ape Reports. I'm your host, Stuart Preston. Each episode, I talk to another Stoned Ape, somebody who has experienced the transformational powers of psychedelics, or with a practitioner who works with these medicines. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with someone who can share both sides of that, Jim Villarreal. Jim is the founder of Gold Cap Integration Network, a network of practitioners who offer entheogenic support from preparation to integration. He shares his own Stoned Ape story of working through PTSD and alcoholism with ayahuasca and psilocybin, as well as great information on really benefiting from your experience. So please enjoy this episode with Jim. Jim, thank you so much for joining me here. I'm excited to talk to you about not only your personal journey, but some of the things that you're doing out there in the community to help other Stoned Apes. So thank you for coming and joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So why don't we start, if you don't mind, telling us a little bit about, your Stoned Ape story. What brought you to psychedelics? I read a little bit on your website about some of the things you were dealing with and going through, and your approach to quote medicine overall. So, maybe you can kind of share your story about how you came to this and the transformation that you went through.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So let's see here. I grew up in the United States, predominantly in Kentucky, which is a part of the Bible Belt there. And I also I was very lucky as well. My father moved to California when I was young, so I got to go see him every summer. So I got the best of both worlds, East Coast and West Coast. And, spending most of my time in the South, I was spoon-fed a lot of dogma through Catholicism. And very quickly, I was rejected by the church because my parents were divorced when I was 2. And they didn't let me go through the Holy Communion, even though I went to Sunday school, all that stuff. So at the very start of my life, I already had a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth from religion. Yeah, and so that's where it really started. When I started questioning things, I pretty much became an atheist. And as we are told or taught in the United States or in any Western country, we need to be successful monetarily, become a businessman, or whatever that may be, whatever we're forced into. And I thought I would make my family happy and do that. So that's when I did it. I won the T-shirt, if you will. And all I got to say is I was miserable, man. I was really miserable. Even though I was married at the time, I was making a ton of money. I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable. So, being an atheist at that time, I knew I needed help, but I didn't know how to ask for help. So what I did was I just decided to say a prayer out loud. I just decided to ask whatever this is at the time for help.
Wow.
And it showed up, but I wasn't awake enough to see it, right? So, with my experience with spirituality, the universe has a way of showing up and building up until you're able to look at your stuff, right? So it kept coming, wasn't listening. And the real helper, the real grace came in, and it wasn't so pleasant, but it was through PTSD. There was a violent robbery that occurred at work one day, and it really shook me up, as it would anybody. It changed my life at that point in time. I had an out-of-body experience. I thought I had died. I had PTSD, a severe amount of PTSD for probably about a good 2 weeks, where I was barely eating, drinking. I could barely sleep. My wife at the time was really worried. She wanted me to go to a psychiatrist and get depression medication, and I just didn't want anything to do with that, So, I was essentially I was on the right side of what I would call life's train tracks, and I was stuck in this cyclical loop of how could I change that, what happened to me, even though I made it out alive. I've already done everything correctly. I'm here. I was still thinking about grabbing the gun and kicking the guy in the balls and, being the hero. I wanted to really do something about it and be a man.
Yeah.
And I was stuck in it, really, really stuck. and meditation came in. Zen, in particular, Zen meditation, for some
Mm-hmm.
reason, insight that I was having. And that was the opposite side of the train tracks, like the other side where I could see it, but I didn't know how to get over there just yet. And so what I did was I just did some research, came across Alan Watts. Next thing you know it, I'm sitting in a Zendo, and I'm practicing at least 6-7 hours a day until I eradicated the PTSD. Had
Wow.
some deep spiritual experiences with that. Found I needed a teacher. I drank ayahuasca, and then the rest is history.
So it's the meditation, it sounds like, is what got you through and over the PTSD.
Yeah, yeah, it did, and there may have been little tidbits of or stickiness or whatever you want to call it that was left over from the PTSD. We as humans, or I'll speak for myself, I carry things,
Mm-hmm.
and the ayahuasca was a way for me to purge the rest of it, and
Mm.
also eradicated alcoholism as well. So even though I was meditating and I had essentially dissolved the PTSD, I was still a part of a fraternal culture where I was going out to the bars, getting drunk every
Mm.
weekend. Hump day comes around, we're getting drunk again. So I was pretty much hungover my whole life, man.
Mm.
Got caught up in that cycle, and the next thing you know it, it's a crutch.
Yeah.
And so that's what ayahuasca did for me. I threw it all up in a bucket.
So you want to tell us about that experience? I mean, what was
Yeah.
you threw your alcoholism and some of the trailing bits of PTSD up into a bucket, but what was the emotional side of that? I mean, we don't need to go through a trip report, right, per se, but what was the experience like, and how did it inspire you to kind of go the direction you've gone?
Yeah, yeah, I would love to share that with you guys. I was in sales for about 13 years of my life,
Hmm.
and within a sales environment with the people I was trained by, I had built myself a pretty big ego. And even though I was meditating and having deep experiences, there was still a lot of resistance. And when I went to the ceremony, I had this like, fuck man, like it was almost like a part of me that was like, oh, ayahuasca, I got this, I'm going to meditate my way through this. As soon as it
Yeah.
kicked in, man, it just kicked my ass. It showed me, without going into a trip report, but it actually showed me all the things that I've done to other people by putting me in their shoes and actually observing my behavior through their eyes, which was
Mm.
really, really difficult.
Yeah.
But each time one of those things in my past were coming up into the psyche, I would throw up. And I had this experience of throwing up that negativity or that darkness or that shadow into the bucket. And I felt lighter and lighter as time went on. And then sooner or later, I felt so light that I felt like I was floating away. I had to ask for help because I wasn't used to that feeling. And then they guided me inside of myself. And then next thing you know it, I'm having a transformative experience of what I would explain as the cosmic serpent or the God. That I was just consciousness floating in the ether, the
Yeah.
void, observing this creator. And that
Wow.
changed my perspective on life totally.
From all that from an atheist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. And
Yeah,
as
that
I
is pretty.
talk
That's
about it, Stuart, it does bring up, it still brings up a lot of, it still brings up emotion and a lot of gratitude for myself for having the
hmm
bravery to go do that. And then also for the medicine that came to me at that time.
How did the medicine come to you at that time? I mean, how did you? I know you said you did some research, but how
Mhm.
did you come to ayahuasca? How did you find that, and how did La Madre call you
Yeah. Through my heart.
through your heart?
It was through my heart. It felt like a pull.
Hmm.
This is how when people come to me, they say, I think I want to do ayahuasca. I think I want to do mushrooms. And I say, I don't know if it's for you right now because it's coming from thought, right? They may
Yeah.
say, Billy down the road had ayahuasca and he's living a great life, so I need it. But that's not true. That's all thought process, right?
Yeah.
So how I was guided was through this very strong feeling in my heart. It felt like sadness, but it was actually a pull. It was like a magnetic draw towards the medicine.
Hmm.
And I was very lucky, Stuart, because I was at a Zendo that was very open about these types of things, and a psychiatrist actually I can't really go into too much detail about where
Hmm.
he does his work, but he he introduced me to a group after I told him about the meditation experiences that I had, and he said, "This is for you." He was like, "You get a grounded meditation." And he said that if you feel like you're called to do ayahuasca, I'm going to introduce you to a group. And then the rest is history. Next thing you know it, I think about 4 to 5 months later, about 20 ceremonies in, I decided I was going to go down to the jungle and do I think I did about 3 dietas, I believe. Yeah, so I did 2 with the Mestizo tradition and then 1 with the Sequoia tribe.
Wow. And you said 3, what was the word you used?
Dieta, which is essentially
Oh,
diet.
dieta. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The diet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you had 20 ceremonies in your history, and then you went down to South America.
Yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah.
roughly about 20 different ceremonies, and then I realized I wanted to work with her in her home, which is the
Yeah.
jungle.
Nice.
Hmm.
That must have been quite an experience.
Oh, yeah. No, I can't even, it's words can't go there.
Yeah. I guess that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. Mm.
So I guess you had some experience also with psilocybin, so I don't know if you have a story of transformation
Yeah,
from that experience you want to share.
yeah. I would love to share that one too. On my second dieta, which was in Ecuador with the Sequoia tribe, we got a chance to work with a very ancient tradition that predated Incan civilization,
Wow.
uh, which was a very old practice that I was lucky enough to witness.
Hmm.
And that took a lot of integration work because the medicine that they were working with was very strong. They had 3 different types, and wow, it really it brings all your shit to the surface.
Yeah.
And I decided I was going to integrate in the Andes Mountains up there in Pisac in Peru, which is right next to Cusco. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, are you?
I've never been there, but I know the area you're talking about.
Okay.
I think when you start researching ayahuasca ceremonies and other ceremonies in South America, that always comes up.
Yeah, it's really popular. It's a epic center for that
Yeah.
type.
Yeah.
Well, I was there, and I was going through a separation. I was married for about 13 years of my life, and I was going through a pretty difficult separation. And
Hmm.
so I took about a month to integrate the experience I had in Ecuador in the mountains there. And one morning, actually, I had a really deep dream. I had a dream of being in a vehicle where I was in the vehicle, I was living my purpose. I felt like I had found myself, but everybody on the outside of the car, it was like I was driving through a mob of people, and they were trying to break through my car and tell me that what I was doing was evil and what I was doing was wrong.
Hmm.
And I started sobbing, absolutely sobbing in the dream, so much so that I woke up sobbing,
Hmm.
and I that carried that feeling on into the day. And somehow, some way, these mushrooms or these plants and fungus, they have, if you're clear enough, you can listen to them. You can listen to what they have to say. And I had a clear message to take a microdose of some mushrooms that a friend had gifted me.
Hmm.
So I took a half a gram, and I sat down and I meditated with it, and I just had a deep somatic purge of crying. And I was told to take 5 grams in the mountains by myself. And so what I did was I felt so strongly about that I packed up my 60-liter Kelty hiking bag with firewood and hiked up the mountain to find my place where I was going to be doing my personal ceremony. So right around the time after I got everything set up, I ended up taking the 5 grams of mushrooms right when the sun went down. And the experience was absolutely extraordinary. It was just different from ayahuasca. These are different teachers, essentially, different personalities, I feel. And yeah, so it was a profound shift in my life at that point. They helped me integrate a lot. And then I moved forward from there. And I knew that was my path. It was like the medicine essentially came to me, and it was telling me that it knew me even before I was born, and this was my path. And that the rest
Yeah.
of that's how Gold Cap Integration Network was actually born.
Out of that experience?
Uh-huh. Yep.
And you were integrating in the mountains.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. I don't know if anybody listening to this has ever been to the Andes Mountains, but there's this a part of the mountains called the Sacred Valley. And the reason why it's called the Sacred Valley is because a lot of the Quechua people, they had very rich soil there in the valley where they can grow all their food and farm. And it was just a very self-sustainable environment. So they saw it as something that's sacred. But there's many more things that actually are going on there. So the reason why I chose to do that is because I wanted to learn from these old ways of the Quechua and just of these different tribes. And they believe in each mountain has a spirit. They call them apus. So the mountain that I was on essentially was calling me. It allowed me to come up there. I asked for permission to do what I was doing. And so I had a little bit of hiking underneath my belt, some survival skills underneath my belt. I knew what I needed. I could start a fire. I put some hot stones around the fire so that way I can warm myself up whenever it got cold underneath my poncho, these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest was pretty much just sitting in one space, going inside of myself. And it was very self-introspective. It was a beautiful journey.
Wow. And so that was the inspiration behind the Gold Cap Integration Network.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so what was the evolution from being an explorer to doing what you do today through that network?
Oh, wow. The evolution. Let's see here. Well, I was still in a job. I was working with software companies I was basically paid to network for software companies in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. And I have already tried ayahuasca, and there was a side of me that was like, wow, there's something to this. I even around that time, there's a lot of when people work with psychedelics and they become they have this transformative experience. I felt like at the time I had a little bit of a Jesus Christ complex where I was like, this medicine is for everybody.
Yeah. I've been in a trip and thought to myself, people could heal themselves just by being near me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is common, man. This is really common. This is why integration, I feel, is so important.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, moving forward, I knew that there was something to this, and as I grounded myself and realized that this medicine wasn't for everybody, I realized that integration is absolutely the most important part of all of this. The medicine is very important, the person is very important, the setting is important, but the integration is even more important because without that, it's just a big waste of time, and it's a waste of medicine.
So what is integration? What does that even mean?
Yeah. Well, integration to me means how do you apply the lessons that you've learned in your journey into your day-to-day life?
Okay. That sounds like a simple answer, but I'm guessing it's actually a little more complex to make that happen.
I can unpack it if you'd like.
Yeah.
So what integration and how we actually help people with integration is helping them I guess, let's see how I would put this, kind of going back, help them go back into the trip through a guided meditation. So usually what we do is help people relax by doing breath work, oxygenating the body and calming the nervous system. And then what we do is we move forward with meditation, and we help them. We usually know the story of the whole journey that they had that they're integrating.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually guide them through with words into like basically them getting into their car and driving to the session, and then all the way to the end whenever they come through their front door of their home after the session. So what that allows them to do, because as you very well know, you probably know this, is that sometimes these journeys can be pretty jarring. They can actually be very fast. Sometimes things can come up and they kind of just get lost. It's almost like a dream.
Mm-hmm.
ever had that where you wake up from a dream and you knew that you had a profound dream, but you couldn't remember what it was, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So asking questions and asking the right questions and recalling these things for people is very important, and it allows people to bring these new little nuggets, these golden nuggets that people would say normally just put off to the side and look at the big picture. They can actually look at the little things in between that are actually the best integration pieces.
Hmm. So it's all those little details, and you're able to bring all that back out.
Usually, I mean, it's not easy for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but usually, yeah, it brings up things. It brings up a lot of emotions too, in a lot of different folks.
Yeah. I bet. I bet. And so, what is it? A long term? Is there more long term stuff after that? Because it sounds, you mentioned the drive to your center and then the drive home, and what happens after that? Is there more that follows that?
Yeah, so we treat it like a therapy session too. Throughout life, we actually go through these, challenges and tribulations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I still go through, like you probably still go through. We're just human, and sometimes we get swept away in that. We have patterning in the neural net that wants us to go down those same grooves again. So what we do is we give support to people that need it. If they're going through a hard time with their family, they usually will reach out because they feel comfortable and they talk about it. And we ask them how could they apply, the integration pieces that we have already integrated and brought up. How can we go back to that space and apply what you've learned into your family affairs? So you do that, and there's other things you can do too around like microdosing therapy sessions, things like this that can be very effective.
And do you ever take them back to the medicine? It's time to have another personal ceremony, another big ceremony down in South America, or
Mhm.
do you recommend it's okay? It sounds like it's time to have another ceremony to try to have another breakthrough or get another layer deeper or anything like that. And then I guess on top of that, do you help them prepare for a trip like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, first thing to answer your first question, Stuart, is that I don't ever persuade anybody to do anything.
Right.
Right. So I'm very careful with that. I don't say like you should go do a ceremony and look at this or anything. I always help them come up with their own answers. So,
Hmm.
through my um, sales training, I look back and I say, man, I'm really grateful for this, that we were actually modeled off of Socrates, where Socrates was able to ask questions to pull the answers that his students already had in them. And
Good old
that's
Socratic method.
Socratic method.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would use that, and then should they come to their own conclusion that they need to do a ceremony, we can help them establish a strong platform for meditation, breath work, yoga, whatever it is that makes them feel most comfortable and clear. Because we're not dogmatic about any certain practices. We don't say meditate, you have to do meditation or anything like that. That's not right. It's not for everybody.
Yeah. So you kind of find what's for them. So I don't want to turn this into a commercial for Gold Cap Integration Network. I am genuinely curious about what you're doing. So somebody out there listening to this and is thinking to themselves, maybe they've done a few ceremonies, maybe they've never done anything, but they're thinking, I need to do this. I feel the call, the pull on my heart, to do this. Is that something that they should reach out to you guys for and say, hey, and I know you talked about Los Angeles and Kentucky and the East Coast and all this, but you're actually in Australia, right?
Yeah, I'm here in Melbourne for the time being. I've been traveling for the past 3 years doing my work, and yeah, we're just offering it pretty much everywhere we go. We offer pre and post integration sessions.
Mm-hmm. So somebody
And
could come to you and even remotely, could you help them
yeah,
through?
yeah,
Okay. So that would be somebody that's listening right now and thinking, okay, I'm feeling this, and I like what Jim's saying. I think he could help me. So
absolutely.
that's what you do.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, yeah. What else do you want to say about the work you're doing and the medicines? I got a couple more questions, but I want to make sure that I don't leave something hanging out there that you wanted to get out.
No, it's I'm good to go. You can ask whatever you like.
Okay. When you first started doing this, and even now, you're very open about this, and you're talking about a lot here. Have you come across with family, friends, random strangers, any reaction to the stigma of working with
Um,
psychedelics?
Absolutely, it is my biggest teacher.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
you know,
what kind of you just get like the standard negative reactions of this is going to destroy your brain, or you're going to have relapses, or I mean, what kind of things do people say, and how do you handle kind of getting them over that initial fear reaction to what you're doing?
well, a lot of most of the time, when people are triggered by what I do, I try to, I always have to be calm, right? Because
Hmm.
what they're being triggered by, they think it's me, but it's really not. It's just that they're being called to look at something, but a lot of times they don't have somebody there to support them to look at it. And what they're actually doing is crying out for help. But one of the biggest things that I've witnessed is most people are saying, yeah, what you're doing is wrong. You're just giving drugs to people.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing, what you're doing is just to make money. It's not for, healing or anything like that. You're just manipulating people. And, that I'm a human being, that stuff hurts.
Yeah.
I still have an ego. I love my work. I'm very passionate about it. I think it's a beautiful thing, and it hurts still. So, it's really hard, man. And, what I'll say right now is that who I was before I started Gold Cap Integration is not who I am today. I'm much, much stronger, but I still have many more lessons to learn.
Yeah, I hear you. When you know in your heart the changes you've gone through, have you ever had somebody who's known you your whole life look at you and say, "You're not that different"?
My mother, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
she
sometimes
still has
ego
this
is the best AC.
she has this ongoing story in her head that I'm still a little boy,
Yeah.
and she wants me to return to that. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. I can't change people's minds.
Right. Right. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to put links. I know I connected with you through the group you've got on Facebook, and you've got the website. So I'm going to put links to some of these things. But just for
Yeah.
the listeners here, do you have any place, if they're curious about what you do and all this stuff, where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So where we're most active at the current moment, we're on Gold Cap Integration Network on Facebook. So if people just go to the groups and search for that, you'll be able to find us. But we do have a website, goldcapintegration.com. We are actively putting up more things to help people. So we're doing, much like yourself, different podcasts with people that have struggled with addictions,
Mm,
and conquered that and been clean for at least 2 years and more, besides the use of psychedelics. And yeah, we're doing integration circles there. We're offering microdosing coaching, pre and post integration. So yeah, just go to the website, goldcapintegration.com, and you should be able to find everything that you need.
okay. Awesome. Well, anything else you want to get out there?
Listen to your heart, everybody. Don't listen to the thinking that's going on in the head there. If you think you want to do psychedelics, I would advise you to sit with it a little bit longer until it's coming from your heart.
Oh, great. Great advice. Great advice. Well, Jim, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to tell your story and share your wisdom with us. I'm really grateful for you doing that.
You're very welcome, Stuart. And I hope that maybe I can have you on my podcast one day.
I would love that.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. That concludes this edition of the Stoned Ape Reports. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Instagram at Stoned Ape Comedy and subscribe to our newsletter at www.stonedapecomedy.com. Again, thanks for listening, and catch you next time, Stoned Apes.